you should watch Dead Pixels. It's actually a pretty good show, and I think during this quarantine that I think it deserves some bit of attention because I think it is actually pretty good. I'll be talking about the second season because it just dropped quite recently.
They already knew, more or less. Well, here's something that you didn't know. 2 of those special atomic bombs haven't gone off.
The first season was released around 2019, and I think it was from the creators of Peep Show. Already pretty fucking hilarious because it's another like cult classic, and it perfectly kind of satirized a lot of bits of gaming culture, things like gatekeeping or things like gaming addiction. The 2 actors in it, Alexa Davies and Will Merrick, who play obviously Meg and Nikki, they were in the show called Avatars, which I think was from the same creator. And while I haven't seen the show, I think it's like a similar premise of like obviously just, you know, gaming nerds is like being completely antisocial. I don't know if Dead Pixels is a successor or if it's it's probably a successor or some sort of sequel, but it's that sort of same idea brought.
Like you're going to expel air?
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know. He fixed my armrest.
Who did?
This guy in my office. I have a wheelie chair and it's got a gimpy armrest and he fixed it and he was like, oh, it's nothing, but it's not nothing. It's called 2 arms of flesh, shadow, human skin and fucking a tree.
Meg, private chat, please. He's a fucking moron.
He's not a fucking moron.
Meg, he made a tower of cows.
The show isn't as linear as some people would assume. Like I remember some people on the comments of the Dead Pixels clip saying that it should have been released like 10 years early, but the show isn't as linear. It's just antisocial nerds being stuck inside all day when it has a lot to say. It perfectly does satirize bits of gaming culture and being shut away and like gatekeeping and all stuff like that.
They're casting Vince Vaughn as Tanadol.
What?
No!
Bullshit!
No!
Bullshit!
No!
What?
Don't even get me started on the hairline. Tanadol has a fringe! A fucking fringe! Vince Vaughn is essentially 95% forehead. Have you seen his hairline from the Emmys?
His forehead is essentially infinite.
This is an international outrage.
I just want to punch someone in the face. I would punch my cat if I had a cat.
I could kill, like, a person.
They're very, like, obviously toxic characters, but also really, really funny. You want a little rundown of the show? You have, obviously, the few characters, Meg, Nikki, Usman, and also Russell, which is like a slightly new character. They all play this game, Kingdom Scrolls, and it's basically it's based on their, like, little interactions when they're really antisocial and they barely get any sunlight or they barely speak to much other people. Even though they're toxic characters, it is really funny because just of the interactions and just of the writing alone. And then you also have the character like Allison, who's basically meant to be the voice of reason that they never ever listen to, that lives in the same house. One of the enjoyable parts is that Nikki, they're still roommates, but obviously they still play and they're still shut away and everything. And a character like Usman, who's the most funniest character in the show, I think a lot of people can agree, well, if they've actually seen the show. He still has a family, but he's still playing games and everything like that.
To talk about you and me, about our relationship. About you neglecting your family so you can play
Okay, I'm kicking off the chat now and I'm running away.
Usman?
Good luck, guys. I'm out of here.
Usman?
And then you have a character like Russell, who's meant to be the complete idiot, completely uninformed, and they think he's like a casual or anything. That's another thing that a part of like the whole gaming culture of the show. So when they released this current season, I will say when I watched it, it was up until like episode 3 when the show actually started to get good again. Because the first 2 episodes were alright, but a lot of what I was laughing at were basically jokes from the first season with Russell, but it didn't really like ramp up the comedy anyway. It was kind of just getting used to like seeing all the characters again and everything. I will say that in episode 3, they mentioned like a different writer, and I had a feeling at that point that the show might have changed a bit, and I actually did, because the jokes were a lot more funnier, they were a lot more like crazier, a lot more crazier situations and everything. It definitely got funnier from that point on. A character like Russell, where he was kind of like had his own comedic flair because obviously he was like the idiot character. They didn't do much funny stuff with him, to be honest. Like he wasn't written, like obviously he goes to like some other random person's place during during the show, and they already have to keep informing him like, no, don't go to this place, you're being watched, you're doing this, that, the other. But don't actually expand on it that much, and I feel like they could have used a little bit more funnier situations and everything. I feel like season 1 handled that a lot better. I will say that Meg and Nikki, they had a bit more character development, even someone like Allison as well, where even though she's meant to be the voice of reason, maybe it's like a spoiler, but she ends up getting into the Kingdom Scrolls game and everything. So I mean, the whole point of like British comedies in general is the lack of character development, that when they try to discover new things, they always end up like circling back to being their old, like, really rude, crude selves. And the show is still that, but it's still obviously just enjoyable seeing all the characters and everything. It's not a perfect show by any means, but I will say, like, there are points where it goes like full cringe, like gross out comedy, and I feel like that's kind of what the show needed quite a bit, because obviously Nicky, he goes through like a whole simp phase when he meets this new girl and everything. Meg ends up getting a boyfriend, and ends up almost getting a boyfriend, but ends up breaking up with him, which I thought was a bit weird because obviously he was really silent, and I don't know what they were trying to hint or anything. I didn't find it that interesting because he wasn't really that extreme anyway, or had much of a character on his own. Even Nikki, where his supposed crush, she seemed a little bit more funny. It seemed like there was more like written for her or anything like that. Meg's boyfriend, however, I don't think she was written that well. Hello there from editing. I don't think I explained myself that well in this part, but what I will say is that Meg's boyfriend, he originally comes in as a British gas employee, and they end up she ends up wanting to fuck him. They end up being into each other and end up being into each other for like one episode. Then she goes to his house, and then they end up breaking up. And there was no character, there was no personality of anything. And Nikki, when he wanted to get with the girl, I think her name was like Daisy or something, she had an actual personality, she had a character, and this person didn't. So there you go. They also do imply that Nikki actually really wants to get with Meg. Like, they imply it twice, but they never actually go with it. And I don't really know what the point of that. I don't know if people would actually like that or not. I'm not really that bothered about it, but I don't know. I don't know. It was kind of like a weird joke that they imply once or twice. They don't go for it at the end. I think overall the show deserves a bit more recognition, because I think the show can be really relatable to quite a few gamers and everything, because obviously Kingdom Scrolls is a parody of other kinds of RPG games or like MMOs and stuff like that. Overall, I wouldn't really say that season 2 is as good as season 1, because season 2 isn't really that consistent. Obviously there's like a few new characters and everything, and obviously someone like Usman, because he's like the funniest character, because he ends up meeting a therapist because his wife ends up going on a subreddit, like husbands and wives that don't have sex for like a while or like a few months and everything, and he ends up meeting a therapist, but he starts playing Kingdom Scrolls as well, so that was actually quite enjoyable. But I mean, if you're gonna go to the show thinking there's gonna be something like Peep Show, I will say something like Peep Show is a lot better anyway. It's always a classic. I think anyone's gonna go to it. But I think the show deserves a little bit more attention. I think especially season 1, because season 1 got really, really inventive. I'm a little bit concerned of like if they're even going to do a season 3, because there's a lot of like effort put into the show, but I barely see anyone talk about it, and I barely see anyone give any reviews of the show at all. There was already like 1 or 2 reviews like I heard about it, but I don't know if the show is going to get a ton of recognition, which is why I'm making this video. I feel like the show definitely deserves a little bit more praise, and I think that it already gets, which I don't, doesn't always seem like a lot.
The truth.